Today I'm going to be reviewing the Grizzl-E Smart, a 40 amp electric vehicle charger. We'll be doing all of our usual tests, including the deep freeze test, extreme heat test. We're going to be adding another test for this unit because it has a particularly high weatherproof rating. So we're going to test just how waterproof it is. But before we jump into the review, let's open up the box and see what comes inside. Okay, she's out of the box. Let's take a look at what we have here. First off, the body of the unit. As you can see, it's a pretty compact design. We'll go over the exact measurements when I do the key features. Next, I have it in white, or what United Chargers calls the Avalanche Edition. They also have it available in black, and also they have something they call the Extreme Edition, which is kind of like a camo color. It's a little confusing, and I've had followers reach out to me because they say, what's the Avalanche Edition or the Extreme Edition? Is it a different type of unit? But it's not. It's just the color. The different editions are just simply colors. Okay, so we have the NEMA 1450 plug. This is available with either NEMA 1450 or NEMA 650. United Chargers doesn't sell it directly as a hardwired unit. If you want to hardwire it, you do it yourself, which we'll go over later, or you have a electrician do that for you. And it has a nice 24-foot long cable, and it has, I noticed, a new connector. In the past, when I reviewed the Grizzl-E units, I always commented on their connector. I didn't like it. It was a very cheap plasticky connector. Looks like United Chargers has upgraded. This is an ITT connector. It's better. I still wouldn't put it in the upper echelon of connectors, but it's better than their previous connector for sure. It feels more robust in your hand, more substantial. The old one just felt like cheap and plasticky. But okay, so an upgrade there. Cable's also an upgrade. This is a much thinner cable than what United Chargers used to put on their chargers, and I suspect it's going to be a lot easier to handle. The old cable that they used, while it was very durable, it was extremely thick. And later in the review, I'll actually compare the diameter of these two, probably when I'm doing the cable deep freeze test on this. Hopefully this performs well, but it's a nice thin cable. I haven't measured this yet, but I'm going to say this is about 16 millimeters. We'll see when I actually measure it later in the review. Okay, so that's the body of the unit. What we have here is, this is the remote connector holster. United Chargers calls this the Easy EV plug. You can't see it, it's stamped on the front. The reason why they call it the Easy EV plug is they say it's very easy to holster the connector. And that's because if you notice, the front of this is tapered. It doesn't have like the exact cutout where you have to be perfect with the connector. You just kind of push it in, and it's going to connect. Even if it's not right on the top, there you go. So you don't have to be perfect with this, and it should, almost any way you put it in, it should lock, which is good because it's one of the things I go over when I do these reviews. Some of the connector holsters make it difficult for you to put the connector in. It might seem like a little thing when they're engineering and designing the unit, but this is what you have to live with every day when you plug and unplug your electric car and you constantly holster it. If it's kind of a pain to holster it, it makes the whole living with the EV just a little bit less enjoyable. Okay, so that's the connector holster. They give you 4 screws and drywall anchors to mount this to the wall, and since it's remote, you can put it wherever you want. You don't have to put it right next to the unit. This is the mounting bracket. It's a 2-piece mounting bracket. What you do is, this small piece here gets mounted on the wall like this. And then this gets bolted with these 4 screws on the top corners. We'll look at it in a second. On the back of the unit. So when you line it up and attach the unit to the body of this cradle here, it goes like that and locks down. And then there's 2 holes here. On the side, there's a locking pin that you get here. It's just a basic pin. But if you mount this in a public space, you can order from United Chargers an optional lock so that you can actually lock this to the wall. I like when the units have these easy, quick release options where you don't have to get out a screwdriver to take it off the wall. And if you do have that, it's important that they offer a lock, which United Chargers does. It's going to get an extra point in the ChargerRater for offering a quick release with a locking mechanism. And I like when the units do that. Okay, so taking a look at the back of here, as I mentioned, this gets mounted on the wall. There's these 3 holes. They only give you 2 screws in here, and they don't give you any drywall anchors. So you want to land this on a stud anyway, hopefully. But if you can't find a stud where you're going to be locating the charger, make sure you put in some really thick drywall anchors so that it's nice and secure, because this unit's heavy, the cable is heavy, and you don't want to pull it off the wall. And I've seen that happen many times by people that didn't secure them. I would use all 3 holes, get 3 nice long screws, and get them right into a stud, and you'll be fine. Okay, so once that's up on the wall, on the back of the unit here, you'll see there's 4 screw holes on the back. That's where this gets mounted to, just like this. They include the 4 screws in here. They're very short, stubby screws, only about ½ inch long. You put those on there, and then this mounts onto the wall. Let's see if I could replicate it. This is mounted like that. This goes on, and it goes down, and then you might be able to see these holes on the side there. That's where you put the pin in to secure it so it doesn't just lift or fall off the wall. And as I said, again, if it's mounted in a public place, buy that optional lock from United Chargers, and it's locked and secured. Nobody can take it from you. Okay, next up, let's take a look at the Grizzl-E Smart's key features. The Grizzl-E Smart currently sells for $375.99. It is 10.25 inches high, 6.25 inches wide, and 3.75 inches deep. It's a pretty compact unit. It can deliver up to 40 amps, which is up to 10 kilowatts to an electric vehicle. It is a plug-in unit, and it comes with either a NEMA 1450 or NEMA 650 plug attached. You decide when you order it. Now, it can be hardwired. We'll talk about that later, but it comes as a plug-in unit. It has a 24-foot long cable. It has the J1772 connector, which is still currently the industry standard. Now, the industry is transitioning to the North American Charging Standard, or NACS connector, but there will be adapters. So if you do get this unit now, you'll be able to charge your electric vehicle for, basically forever. You don't have to worry about the need to go buy another charger. It has an aluminum IP67 rated enclosure, which is similar to a NEMA 6 rating, and we're going to be doing some weatherproof testing on that later. The operating temperature is from 122 degrees Fahrenheit to negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. It is a Wi-Fi connected smart charger. It's UL certified, Energy Star rated. It comes with a 3-year factory warranty, but you can buy an additional 2 years and get a 5-year warranty for an extra $100. And the unit is made in Canada. Okay, so let's kick off the testing. The first test we're going to do here today is the cable deep freeze test with the Grizzl-E. I put the Grizzl-E Smart in this freezer 24 hours ago. This is a commercial deep freezer. It gets somewhere between -10 and -15 degrees. I do this for 24 hours to test the pliability of the cable, how well it's going to perform if it's mounted in a cold weather area. Now, the previous Grizzl-Es did okay in this test, but they had these really thick cables. We're going to do a little bit of a cable comparison test later from the old unit compared to the new one. The new one has a much thinner cable, so I'm hoping that it performs better in the cold weather test. First, let's see how cold it is in there. -14 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so it's pretty cold. Now I'm going to pull the Grizzl-E out and let's start the cold weather testing. All right. I tie the cable up in these very small, tight loops, and then we see how well it opens up and flexes to large loops. Okay. Okay, that's not good. You don't want to see the cable remain in this coil like this, like it's almost like a slinky, right, going down the steps. This isn't great cold weather performance. But the one thing I will say is, because this is a thin cable, we're going to measure it next. It's can be maneuvered. When the cables are this frozen and they're thick, you have to almost use all your might to bend them. Because this is, I'm guessing, just a little over 16 millimeters, I can easily manipulate it. Now, that doesn't mean it's a good cold weather performing cable, because let's say now I just unplugged my electric vehicle and I want to take this and hang it up over the charger to, you know, store it. It's like, okay, you kind of get the point. So this is going to actually lose a point on our ChargerRater for below average cable performance. It's not terrible because I can bend it and manipulate it and use it if I needed to. But, you know, they could do better than this. There's a lot of cables on the market that perform a lot better. As you can see, it's still coiled up in this spring-like position, and it's been out of the freezer in much warmer temperatures for a few minutes now. Okay, before it completely thaws out, let's do a couple of things. I don't even know if I could plug this in. As you could tell, the cable for the plug is much thicker than the cable for the charger. Let's see if I can get this plugged in. All right, I did get it plugged in. Let's see if it powers up. But while it's doing that, let's do the connector drop test. And I mentioned earlier that this connector seemed like it was better, more robust than the previous Grizzl-E connector. This is made by ITT. This connector is actually used by a bunch of other chargers, and I've never really had a problem with it before. So let's see how well it does in the the connector drop test. One. Ooh, it fell right on the edge that time. No problem. All right, 5 good hard drops on the concrete while it's frozen. Doesn't seem to be any issues here. I wasn't expecting that. I know these ITT connectors are made pretty well. It's a good upgrade for the Grizzl-E. I'm glad that United Chargers is using this connector over the previous one that they used, that I had tested on their previous models. I thought that that was a substandard connector. And it wasn't terrible, but it didn't feel like it was a quality connector in your hand. Okay, this seems to be lighting up fine. So the last test that I'll do now is let me pull my Chevy Bolt EV into the garage and plug it in and make sure that it charges while the unit is deep frozen like this. Okay, blue light is blinking. Green light's blinking. The Bolt just made the beep. That means it's charging. Okay, so the Grizzl-E Smart passed the connector drop test and the cold start test. It didn't pass the cable deep freeze test though. This is gonna lose a point on our ChargerRater. As you can see, I mean, this cable is still coiled up tightly, and it can be straightened out, but it could do much better. There's a lot of cables that we've tested here in the State of Charge Garage that perform much better in cold weather conditions. And United Chargers, being a Canadian company, a lot of their customers are up north, and I would think that they would source a cable that maybe performed a little bit better in cold weather. So hopefully they'll take a look at this video and perhaps consider sourcing an even better cold weather performing cable. Now it won't be unusable. You could use this in cold weather, but there's better cables out on the market, and why accept okay when you can strive for excellence? Next up, it's time for our extreme heat test. I've had this heat lamp on the Grizzl-E Smart for 2 hours now, and I've maintained a surface temperature in excess of 120 degrees. Now we do this test to simulate if the charger was installed outdoors in a very hot weather climate area like Arizona, in direct sunlight, baking. We've noticed that some of these units will not function as they're supposed to when it gets very hot. Some of them will derate their power, others will shut off completely. So we bake the unit for 2 consecutive hours at 120 degrees, then I plug in my electric vehicle and I allow it to draw the maximum amount that the charger can put out. With the case of the Grizzl-E Classic or Grizzl-E Smart, that would be about 10 kilowatts, 40 amps, somewhere between 9.5 and 10 kilowatts, depending on my line voltage in my house at the time, which does fluctuate. So let's take a look at how hot the unit is now. It is exactly 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's been baking for 2 hours. I'm now going to pull my Rivian R1S into the garage and plug it in and let it charge for 2 consecutive hours. I want to make sure that the vehicle takes in close to 20 kilowatts of power, and the Grizzl-E continues to deliver the maximum power it's supposed to. Now, I'll leave the heat lamp on the unit for those 2 hours. And at that point, at the end of the 2 hours, I'll take the temperature again. It's going to be a lot hotter because the unit itself heats up while it's continuously charging an EV. It's probably going to be somewhere in the 140 to 150 degree area, maybe even higher. And it will be that hot inside also. So we want to see how it performs in the extreme weather. I'm going to plug in the Rivian R1S now, check back in 2 hours. So my Rivian R1S has been charging for 2 hours. The heat lamp's been on the Grizzl-E. Let's see how hot it is now. Let me get a good temperature reading here. 151.5 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's baking, and that's not unusual for the units. When I have the heat lamp on them and they're charging a vehicle at their maximum power for a couple of hours, they get up that hot. And the Grizzl-E passes the test. I just checked inside my Rivian R1S. It's accepted 18 kilowatt hour of energy over this 2 hour period, averaging 9 kilowatt hour or 9 kilowatt power delivery for 2 hours would be 18 kilowatt hour delivered to the vehicle. Didn't derate, it didn't shut off. It's been working fine, and it's chugging along at a higher than its 122 degree operating temperature recommended maximum. So that's going to be a pass for the Grizzl-E Smart in our extreme heat test. So before I continue with the review, I want to explain something about the Grizzl-E Smart. What I have here is the unit that we're reviewing here today. This is the Grizzl-E Smart that I reviewed a couple of years ago. And there are differences, and that's why I agreed to review the unit again. So let me explain right from the beginning. The biggest difference is initially United Chargers, who makes Grizzl-E chargers, had planned to use third parties to provide the app for the Grizzl-E Smart. And they partnered with ChargeLab and AmpUp, and the user experience was not very good. And if you go online, you'll see there's a lot of bad reviews about the Grizzl-E Smart, mostly centered around the app experience and the fact that it had poor connectivity, and people just didn't like the app. So United Chargers went out and developed their own app, and they're sort of relaunching Grizzl-E Smart now. And it's a redesign unit, not entirely redesigned, but there are a few changes which we're going to go through now. And then later on in the review, we're going to take a closer look at the new app. I'm going to show you how to commission it and pair it with your unit and some of the features that it has. So let's just take a look at the units, the physical differences. First off, and I mentioned earlier, the connector's improved. The original connector here, I really was not a fan of. The ITT connector that they have now, I think it's much better. It feels like it's a more solid unit. It feels better made. This connector here is very plasticky. Doesn't feel like it's super high quality. It does have this plastic cap to protect the pins that the ITT connector doesn't have. So that's a little bit of a negative. But as long as you holster the connector, that's really not a problem. One of the things I always look at is how this locking mechanism works, and I like to press the tab down and then see if I can bend it. I can't bend the ITT connector's tab at all. I think this is a metal piece here. It's either that or it's very strong plastic, which is good. Now we'll take a look at the original one. When I press this button here, I can bend this top piece. Not a lot, not as bad as some of the other units, but I can definitely bend it down a little bit. So that's a little bit of a negative. That's definitely an improved connector over the one they used to use. Now the cable, they're both 24 feet long, but look at how much thinner the new cable is. And let's measure the thickness while we're here. The new cable, I'm getting at, let me see here. Gotta get a good reading. 16 millimeter. Okay, now the old cable, much thicker. Look at this chunky thing. 21.8 millimeter. So I'm no math whiz, but that's close to 30% thinner. So it makes a big difference usability, especially as you saw with the cable deep freeze test. If the cable's really frozen hard, a thinner cable's easier to bend. If this guy's frozen really solidly, it's a bear to bend, and it makes daily using the units a lot less enjoyable. Now we'll also take a quick look at the Easy EV plug. The Grizzl-E Smart comes with this plug holster here, or the Easy EV plug, the heavy duty version. Previously, United Chargers gave this version here. This is their basic Easy EV plug holder. You get this when you buy the less expensive Grizzl-E Classic right now, but if you get the Grizzl-E Smart, you get this connector holster here, and it's bigger, it's stronger. I really don't know why they're making two of these. It can't cost that much more to make this one than this one. It's a little bit more plastic. They're both plastic, but they do. And when you get the Smart version, you get this more robust connector holster. You can purchase it online. The basic Easy EV plug is $9.99, and the heavy duty one is, I think it's $18.99. Yeah, so not quite double, but almost twice as expensive. It's a better unit for sure. My recommendation to United Chargers would be to just discontinue making this little guy here. Just put this in all the units. It really can't cost that much more to make. So the body of the units are the same. They have the same waterproof rating and so forth. And one last difference is, look at the cable here. This is the plug cable. This one's, I think, 24 inches long. I measured it. And this one's about 19 inches long. So they give you a little bit more. It looks like it's 5 or 6 inches longer. And that helps when you're finding the plug to plug it into. You get a little bit more room. It's a little bit easier to maneuver. This is a really thick, on both of them, tough cable to maneuver. So not that you'll have to do it. You'll be plugging it in once. But that extra 5 or 6 inches gives you a little bit more flexibility on where you can mount this in relation to where your NEMA 1450 plug is. So those are the physical differences. I like the improvements that they made. It's a better connector holster. It's a better connector. It's a better cable. It's a longer plug. So all things moving in the right direction with Grizzl-E Smart, as long as the app works better than it did previously, which we're going to check out coming up soon in the review. I also performed the automatic restart test on all three of my electric vehicles, my Bolt, my Rivian R1S, and my Lightning. With the automatic restart test, I plug in the vehicle and have it start charging, and then I turn off the circuit breaker that powers the charger, wait a few minutes, turn it back on to make sure that the charger will re-engage the vehicle and start charging again. I found that some chargers will, on occasion, enter a fault state and not start charging the vehicle again. So if you have a temporary power outage overnight, let's say while you're sleeping, it could just be for a minute, the car's not charged in the morning. So I did that test with the Grizzl-E Smart, and it worked fine. Shut the power off, it stopped charging. Once I turned the power back on, it took maybe 10 or 15 seconds, and the charger started charging my vehicles again. So it passes the automatic restart test. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about why we're doing this review here today. As I mentioned earlier, I've reviewed the Grizzl-E products in the past, and I've even reviewed the Grizzl-E Smart in the past. But this is a new sort of improved unit and has a new app. So we'll talk a little bit about the app now. First, what I'd like to mention is in the box, there is this sheet here that explains how to connect the app. It's pretty thorough. But what I found even better than this is United Chargers has on their YouTube channel a video, a step-by-step instructional video that shows you exactly how to set up the charger and connect it with your app. And I recommend you following those instructions. I'm actually going to put a link to that video in the description of this video, rather than me taking 5 minutes to explain how to connect everything and showing on the video. They've already done it. They produced a nice video. It's like 3 minutes long, and I'm just going to put the link in there. So if you have any questions about how to pair this with your app, just follow the link, go to that video, and everything's right there. And once you have the app installed and connected, you could set a charging schedule. Let's say if you have time of use charging and you want to take advantage of lower electricity rates. You can also see real-time charging information, how much power is being delivered to the vehicle, how long it's been charging for. You could also disable the charger if you want to control who uses it. Let's say it's installed in a public place. You don't want anybody to be able to use it. You can disable it. It shows a 30-day history of all of the charging sessions that you've had in the last 30 days. I wish it was longer. And then there's also a monthly total on how much energy you have put into your car or the charger has delivered, and also how much it's cost you. You can put how much you pay per kilowatt hour for your electricity in the app. Now I noticed when I set my app up, it automatically had what I pay here. So I think the app has by default the average electricity price in your area, but you could also change it if it's incorrect. And that's pretty cool because you get to see a monthly total of exactly how much it costs you to charge your car. When you fill up a gas car, you know how much you pay to buy gas, but with an EV, you kind of plug it in and your electricity bill is all mixed in with all the other electricity you use. So you really don't know exactly how much it costs you to power your car. But with an app like this, you get that finite dollar amount each month and you know how much you're paying for fuel for your vehicle. So I think that's really cool. You can also do over-the-air firmware updates from the app. Matter of fact, I have to do, and I got a very early version of this unit here, and the app is reminding me that I need to do a firmware update, so I'm going to probably do that. I didn't want to do it during the review in case there was a problem, and then I'd have to stop the review and everything. So I'll do that right after the review, but that's cool that you can do the over-the-air updates. One thing I will mention is when you do connect this to your Wi-Fi network, it has to be connected to a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi band, not the 5 gigahertz. Most households have both, but if you don't, you can get a Wi-Fi extender that is 2.4 gigahertz. And another thing that I noticed with the Grizzl-E units in particular, they need a very strong Wi-Fi signal. I think stronger than some of the other EV chargers that I've reviewed in order to connect. And I've noticed in some of the reviews, people have complained about it disconnecting. Get a Wi-Fi extender and put it close to the unit, and then you'll never have a problem. United Chargers actually sells one for only $24.99 on their website, and that Wi-Fi extender has been thoroughly tested with this unit. There'll be no compatibility issues, because sometimes there's compatibility issues. And, if you have a weak signal, or if the charger's in your garage on the other side of your house and your Wi-Fi router is upstairs on the other side of the house, you might want to get the extender. It's only $24.99. I think it's a good purchase to have a nice, solid, good connection all of the time. One of the things that I really like about the Grizzl-E line of chargers, the Smart included, is the robust construction. It's made of very durable, thick aluminum. Most chargers on the market today are made of plastic. Some of those are made very well in very strong plastic, some not so well and are flimsy. But this unit here is one of the strongest, toughest chargers that we review here. And it's very good for outdoor installations. This thing can get beat up. You could whack this thing with a bat if you wanted to. You're not going to break it. And I also like its weatherproof rating. It's IP67 rated, which is kind of similar. It's not an exact match with IP and NEMA, but it's similar to a NEMA 6 rating. Now, most of the chargers we do here are either NEMA 3 rated or NEMA 4 rated. So this is equivalent to a NEMA 6 rating, meaning I can submerge it in water, or you should be able to submerge it in up to 1 meter of water for up to 30 minutes without having any water intrusion. So that's what we're going to do. I typically don't do this with the wall-mounted units. I do it with the small portable chargers because many of them are IP67 rated. They're smaller and they're meant to be portable and taken outside. So some of them have high ratings, but very rarely do any of the wall-mounted units like this have higher than an NEMA 4 rating, but this does. So I'm going to submerge it in a bucket now. I'm going to leave it in a bucket of water for 30 minutes. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to plug it in and make sure it lights up and everything. Then we're going to open it up and take a look inside and make sure there's no water intrusion. And that's when we'll take a look at things on the inside, like how you set the power outage, because this can have an output change lowered. It puts out 40 amps from the factory, but you could reduce that down lower if you want to charge your car slower, or if it needs to be on a circuit that can't deliver the full 40 amps. There's an internal dip switch. I'll show you how to do that inside, and then I'll also show you where you would change the wiring if you wanted to directly hardwire this and not use the outlet on the wall. So let me dump this thing in a bucket now, and we'll see how well it fares. And here we are ready to do the water submersion test. I already removed the locking pin from the back because I don't need to take my whole wall bracket off. We're going to put the Grizzl-E in this water I have here. And I know it was going to float. Well, if it didn't, if it sank, I know it was going to fail immediately. So I have this Belgium block, this spare Belgium block that I have. I'm going to use it to hold it in under the water. Now I shouldn't be seeing any air bubbles, and so far I'm not, so that's a good sign. And let you take a look at what it looks like in there. And there's actually a couple of air bubbles, but hopefully that's coming out from the bracket itself and not the unit, but we'll see. And we'll leave it in there for half an hour and see how it does. All right, it's been a half an hour now, actually 32 minutes, and let's see how she performs. Let me get this on there. Let me put safety pin in just so it doesn't fall off on me. Of course, it's taking me longer than ever because people are watching on video. All right, so let's take the front cover off. Well, first of all, let's plug it in. That's dry. See if it lights up. Okay, we have the red light. Yep, looks like it's good to go. Blue light, so it seems like it's good. Now let's just take a closer look and see if any water's actually gotten inside. There's definitely water in these holes, but that doesn't mean it got inside the unit. Because, and I'll explain that in a second, and as you can see, water did drip out when I opened the case. But I'm really looking to see if there's water in here. That's because the Grizzl-E has a gasket and a groove in between the outer case and the inside. It's hard to see, but there's a raised lip here. And water can be out here just fine, which is where I see it right now. As a matter of fact, I'm going to move this other second camera in place so we can get closer up. 1 second. There we go. So the water that came out from this section here, which is in between the outer case and the inner case. So it didn't get past the this groove here where the gasket, this rubber gasket, fits. What I really like about the design is it has this raised ridge here, and then the outer case has an inlet here where it fits into with a rubber gasket. So when you press this together, it really pinches the rubber gasket over this raised lip here. When I see units designed like that, I really appreciate that because it really helps to keep anything from getting inside. Now I'm looking close at this. The inside of the unit is completely dry. I don't see any water in here at all. I'm pretty sure you can see this from the close-up camera, and that's after a half an hour of being submerged in not 30 inches of water, but it was submerged in about 12 or 14 inches of water, and that's all nice and sealed nicely. Nothing got in, there's no intrusion, so it passes the water submersion test. Next, what I wanted to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, this comes as a plug-in unit, either NEMA 1450 or NEMA 650. You can order that when you make the purchase. But if you want to hardwire it, this is where you do it right here. Very simple. You'd have your electrician just wire it coming through the same. You could remove this, use the same, probably use the same connector here to close it in. But that's how you do it. These three wires here is where you land them, and that's a simple swap to make this a hardwired unit. Now, unlike some other units, you can't come in through the rear. Many of the other chargers allow you to have a rear direct conduit so that it's like a clean installation. You don't see conduit or anything outside, but the Grizzl-E you can't, particularly because it's this really tough, thick aluminum case. There's not another knockout in the back, and there's a corner, so there's not a lot of room for it. Real simple construction here when you take a look at it. I like to see when they're not overly complicated. And the last thing we'll talk about is if you want to dial down the power. See these set of 4 dip switches here? That's where you change the power out. You could reduce the power output down to, I believe it's 16 amps. You go to the manual, the Grizzl-E Smart's user manual, which you download. They don't include it in the box. You download it. There's a QR code on a sheet of paper that comes in the box, and it says for the user's manual, scan this code. And on that, it shows you where these 4 dip switches, the location they need to be in. Now, the one to the far right is the only one pushed down at this point. Take a look at that in the owner's manual and adjust the dip switch accordingly, and you could dial down the power if you'd like to. Okay, well, that's it for the inside. It's pretty simple, as you see here, not overly complicated, and as they should be. There's not a real reason to have too many things going on. Sometimes I open these chargers up and I look at them and I say, well, what's going on with all there? The Tesla wall connector has a real simple inside, and so does the Grizzl-E. So good job. I love this robust construction, and passed our water submersion test here today. Okay, well, that's pretty much it for the review. What I'll do now is offer some of my final thoughts on the Grizzl-E Smart, and then we'll jump into the ratings. So I've always been a fan of the Grizzl-E chargers since they've come out, and this new improved Grizzl-E Smart hasn't done anything to change my opinion. It's a better unit than the previous Grizzl-E Smart that they put out a couple of years ago. One of the problems is if you bought one of those, you can't use the new app because the hardware is different. But United Chargers has instituted an upgrade program. Now, depending on when you bought it, and I don't know the exact date, but I'll put it up on the screen as I'm talking now. If you bought the unit after a certain date, you can have them upgrade the hardware for free. If it's older than that date, you have to pay for it. But with the upgraded hardware, you can then connect to the new Grizzl-E app, and you don't have to worry about relying on ChargeLab or amp up the previous software that, as I mentioned earlier, has been an issue for a lot of owners. So you can have your Grizzl-E upgraded. Unfortunately, it needs a hardware upgrade, so you actually have to ship the unit to United Chargers. If you're in Canada, to their Canada location. If you're in the US, to their Florida location, they'll upgrade the hardware for you, and then you could use this new app. And speaking of the app, I used it for a while, and it worked fine for me. I didn't have any connectivity issues. It recorded all my charging session, did everything it was supposed to. It doesn't have a whole lot of functionality, but it is a new app. I'm expecting maybe United Chargers to add some more options to it. One of the things you can't do in the app that you can do in some other apps is dial down the output of the charger. Some of the chargers have an internal dip switch like this has, where you can set a maximum. You can say, look, I'm only on a 40 amp circuit, so I can only deliver 32 amps. So you set the interior dip switch to 32 amps, and the charger will never exceed that. But then in the app, you could say, you know what, I'd prefer to just charge slower tonight and dial it down to 20 amps or something like that. I like when the units have that ability to set a hard limit inside the unit, but then dial it up and down as you prefer. And the app can't do that yet, at least. The app also, the unit, even though it's a smart charger, it doesn't have functionality with, say, Google Home or Amazon Alexa. That would be nice features to see them added. But otherwise, the upgrades that United Chargers have done here are really good. The cable's better, although it could perform better in cold weather. It didn't do that well as far as pliability. It was pretty stiff, but since it's so thin, I was able to bend it. So you can use this in cold weather, but they can get a more rubberized jacket on this and have it perform better. The connector's better. The unit is, as all the Grizzlies are, this is as tough as it gets, this unit. It's as durable as you can get. So I'm a fan of the Grizzl-E Smart. I like this, and I like the fact that United Chargers sells it for a very reasonable price. It's $375.99. Now, the Classic is $329.99. So it's $45 more. And for that, you do get a lot of functionality. I think it's a good buy for that extra $45. And as I mentioned, you get the better connector holster if you get the Smart. One thing I forgot to mention, the locking pin in that holds the unit to the wall, that lock that you offer, they also use it to lock the connector. So if this is in the public, there's a hole on the side of this, matter of fact, I could take it off, you could see this, on the side of the Easy EV plug, and you can use that to lock the connector so that you unlock it by pressing this tab. The lock will keep the tab from being able to be lifted. So if this was in a public place, you could have that lock on your connector so people can't just access the connector. Now, if you have the unit turned off, which you can in the app, they wouldn't be able to use it anyway, but it prevents people from even trying or messing with it. So that's also a neat feature that's new to this unit. Okay, so that's it for the review. That did pretty well. I'm definitely satisfied with this. It's going to go on our recommended list, and with the price, it might even make our top chargers of 2024. We'll see. That video will be out in a couple of weeks. So now all that's left to do is talk about the ratings. And for that, first up, we'll do our point-based rating system, the ChargerRater. Okay, we'll start off in the cost and value category. It gets 3 points because the unit is under $400. Okay, for value, I really decide, this was a tough one for me. I'm going to give it 1 point for a good value. I'm not going to give it the extra 2 for an excellent. It would have been an excellent value if this was a 48 amp unit. But since it's only a 40 amp unit, I can't give it an excellent rating at the $375.99. But it does get a point there. It finishes up cost and value category with 19 points. For power and weatherproof rating, it doesn't get any points for max charging power because it's a 40 amp unit. For adjustable power, it's going to get 1 point because, as I mentioned, the internal dip switch allows you to adjust the power. It doesn't get that extra point for dip switch and app. For extreme heat test, it passed the extreme heat test. It gets a point there. Weatherproof rating, it gets 2 points because it's actually it goes off the scale. NEMA 4 gets 2 points. This is higher than NEMA 4, so it gets 2 points there. Energy Star certified, yes, it is an Energy Star certified unit. I looked it up. 1 point. Automatic restart, it passed the automatic restart test. For power and weatherproof rating category, it gets 21 points. That's an excellent score for that category. Okay, for construction and durability, it's not going to get any points for connector and holster. I like this connector. The holster's a good connector, but I'm going to put it in the average category. It's not above average. No points there. Cable length, it's going to get 2 points because it has a 24-foot cable. Cable pliability, I'm not going to give it any penalty, and it's not getting any extra points. More I thought about this, I was going to subtract a point for this cable, but because the cable was thin, even though it was frozen and it was pretty stiff, I was able to easily bend it, and that's really what it comes down to. Can you use the cable when it's frozen, or does it become so stiff that you can't bend it? It did not perform well. This was borderline poor, but I didn't give it the point loss there. It's going to get no points, and it's not going to lose points. Robust construction, 1 point for that because the construction is excellent on the Grizzl-E. I've said that many times. It's about as tough a charger as you're going to get, so it's going to get a point there, and very few chargers get a point on that line item. Removability, it gets a point because it has the security lock. You can just quickly take it off the wall. I like when the units can do that. You don't have to break out a screwdriver and remove it. You remove the pin or the lock and you could take it off easily. Ease of installation, no points there because you don't get any points. It should be easy to install. It finishes up the construction and durability category with 19 points. Smart and non-smart, it gets 2 points because it's a smart charger. It gets no points because it is not power share capable. That's something that I wish United Chargers would add to this, that it could share power with multiple Grizzl-E's. Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant capable, it is not. For charging record data, extensive data, it does get a point there. It's not really extensive data. It gives you 30 days of data. I'd love to see them add more, but it does store all that information for a month and give you all your totals on how much it costs for electric. So we're going to give it a point there. OCPP compliant. It is an OCPP compliant charger, so it gets a point there. Finishes up the smart and non-smart category with 19 points. Safety certified and warranty. It gets no points. It is safety certified, but you don't get points for that. You only lose them if you're not. And warranty, it comes standard with a 3-year warranty, so it gets 3 points. You can buy a 5-year warranty, get 2 extra years for $100. I think that's a good buy, but that's going to be up to you. So it finishes the safety certified warranty category with 18 points, giving the Grizzl-E Smart a total score on our ChargerRater of 96 points. Okay, and when you take those 96 points and convert them to a 5-star rating, the Grizzl-E Smart gets a 4.8 star rating. An excellent score on the ChargerRater. Okay, now I offer my own personal score, and then we average the two for the final score. I'm not going to be as kind for the Grizzl-E Smart on my personal score. I'm going to give it a 4.5 star, which is an excellent score for my personal score. And I'll tell you why. There's a couple things I'd love to have this unit have. I'd like it to be a 48 amp charger, although I contradict myself sometimes because I say most people don't need to charge at 48 amps. Most of the chargers coming on the market today are 48 amps, and most electric vehicles can accept 48 amps. What's that going to get you? This delivers on average 9.5, 9.6 kilowatts to your vehicle. A 48 amp charger would deliver 11.3, 11.4, somewhere around there. So less than 2 kilowatts more per hour, or 2 kilowatt hour per hour you'd get to your EV. Unless you're an extreme high mileage driver, that's not going to make that much of a difference. When you plug in the morning, you're going to be full whether you're charging on 40 amps or 48 amps. Now, there might be some edge cases where that extra couple of amps make a difference, like and I have 2 of those edge cases. I own a Ford F-150 Lightning and a Rivian R1S, both of which are big, heavy vehicles that only get about 2 miles per kilowatt hour. On those big vehicles, if you drive 150, 200 miles a day and you want to recharge in the morning, you might not be fully charged. You might need those extra 2 kilowatts. So, but that's a super edge case. For most people, 40 amps is just fine. You don't need to charge at home at the highest possible speed. Most people at least don't. So, but I'm going to, I'm going to criticize it for that. Also, I'd love to see the unit power share. I'd like to see it maybe connect with Amazon Alexa for smart homes, so you could just tell Amazon or tell Alexa, hey, charge my car, and it starts charging. So there's some things that they can improve. They can improve this cable could be a little bit better. So that for those reasons, I'm going to give it a 4.5 star out of 5, personal score. And it's going to give the Grizzl-E Smart a final score of 4.65 stars out of 5. Very high score, one of the highest rated chargers we have here on State of Charge. I have a feeling this is going to make it into the 2024 best of video, which will probably be out in about a month and a half. Listen, the only thing that's left now is to talk about my hits and misses before we do the wrap up. Okay, for the hits, I'm going to start off with robust construction. This unit is built solidly. All the Grizzl-E's are. United Chargers does a fantastic job. This all aluminum outer casing is just about as tough as you're going to get on any charger on the market. The improved features I like. The fact that this is a better unit than the Smart that they put out 2 years ago. All the little things I talked about in the video, United Chargers has improved it. And also the low price. At $374.99 for a 40 amp Wi-Fi connected smart charger that's built rock solid, has the features that this has, I think that's a really good price and it's one of the hits. All right, for misses, we'll start off with cable performance. I was excited when I saw that United Chargers sourced a new cable for this, a much thinner cable. And I was hoping that it would perform a little bit better in our deep freeze test. It really didn't. They could do better for the cable, so that's going to be a miss. Limited app functions. This is a new app. They're just building it out now. I'd like to see more functionality in that app. It worked fine for me. Everything it was supposed to do, it did just fine, but I think they could add a little bit more features to that and maybe keep more data so that you don't lose your data after 30 days. And then also limited to 40 amps. The market seems to be moving for all electric vehicles now to have 48 amp onboard chargers or dual 40 amp chargers to charge at 80 amps if it's a really big battery. So I think 40 amps was kind of like the standard 3 or 4 years ago, but I think we moved on to 48 amps. So I'd like to see the unit, possibly future iterations, deliver a little bit more power. So that's going to be a miss there. Well, that's it for our Grizzl-E Smart review. I hope you learned a little bit about the unit here and help you make a decision whether you want to get this charger or not. I think it's a good unit at a very good price. It's going to go on our recommended list. Listen, if this is your first time here at State of Charge, please don't forget, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.